Welcome back to From Corporate to Cash Flow. We are Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate investing and lending while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. And today we have the lovely Becca Brown here with us today. Thanks, Becca, so much for joining us.
I'm excited to be here. I feel like it's been kind of a long time coming. We've been connections for quite a while, and so I'm excited to be on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you again, Becca. As you mentioned, it has been a hot second. I think I met you at one of the very first real estate meetups that I went to. I think it was literally the very first one, and you were leading it. So small world, right? But I would love if you could just tell us a little bit about your journey. So, kind of like where you started, how you figured out what you wanted to go into, and kind of like what you're focusing on now.
Yeah, so I started similar to you guys. I didn't start in real estate. I worked through various corporate jobs. Most of them were in sales or training, and then got in towards operations at the end. And I kept finding in my corporate jobs that I would hit this ceiling of where I had visions for what I wanted to do in my position. And you don't always have the authority to do what you want to do. And so I ran into that a little bit at my corporate jobs and a little bit. I actually had worked as a summer camp coordinator for the YWCA locally in Salt Lake. So I kept running into these things as I was working for other people where I wanted a little bit more freedom. And real estate and entrepreneurship seemed to answer some of those like problems that I was having with
Yeah.
providing an option where I could do more of what I wanted and handle more of the responsibility. So I started listening to Bigger Pockets with my husband maybe 7 years ago now. We started small. We just started on drives. We would listen to Bigger Pockets. We would just soak up as much as we could. We were studying the Burr method. We're like, okay, we know that we want to have properties and continue to work, but have this thing on the side. And that introduced us to creative finance, which opened up a whole nother box of worms. And pretty soon we found ourselves investing in a couple different mentorships to help guide us more into some very specific strategies. And that would
Yeah.
have been 2023. So around the same time that I met you guys.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think we all kind of found ourselves in that space.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so I know you, like I said, from a local meetup. So can you tell everyone a little bit about what your role is and what you've been working on, for quite a while now, I feel like.
Yeah, it's a little over 2 years. When we first joined, I first joined on a lending program called the Gator Method. That time period, we didn't have a lot of veteran gators, right? We didn't have a lot of people to look to say like, how did you do it, other than people we were talking to virtually. So I really wanted a space where especially people in the lending space could connect and work together to build out that sense of community, where we just didn't quite have it. We had a few things going on already, but we didn't have as much of the support, particularly on the lending side. And so what it started off as was the summer challenge checklist, where I came up with a list of items that were our homework that we were already supposed to be doing. We kind of opened it up so it didn't have to just be lenders, but we gave away a MacBook that first summer. We had a bunch of local entrepreneurs give away like a day with them to like learn their business wholesaling and doing other things like that. And through meeting those 3 months, we just grew this little tight knit community where even though um, even though we didn't have all of the pieces together yet, like we had a really good connection with a lot of these people. And some of those people who started coming to my meetups are my business partners now. And certainly you guys understand that. But it grew from one challenge to just a monthly meetup, because every time I was like, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it, everyone would just come back and be like, you cannot stop doing these are the lifeline that we hold on to. So it just kept going, and now it's been 2 years consistent.
Yeah, and are those open to anyone then? Like anyone in Utah that's interested in real estate or
Yes.
that just wants to join a meetup? Like,
Please, anyone who is interested, anyone who is curious about it but doesn't know yet if, like, what part they fit into or where they want to invest, is a great way to talk to people who are doing it and find out what is the most appealing for you and what fits the most with your W-2, what fits the most with your family circumstances. And it takes some of the guesswork out of
Mhm.
deciding to jump into something new.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's hard to figure out what you want to go into for lots of people, myself included. It was really hard for me to be like, what part of real estate do I fit into, right? And on that note, can you take us through maybe your journey into how you became a TC and what a TC is?
So I became a TC on accident. I fully did not expect to become a TC. I love helping people. I love bringing people together, and I love the connection side of things. But sometimes when you hear someone describe TC work, it sounds like, ooh, like I'd rather pull my teeth out than deal with that. And I was one of the people
Yeah, for sure.
who reflected that.
Same. But for people that aren't super familiar, for the abbreviation TC, can you explain to like non-real estate individuals what that stands for and at a high level what they actually do?
Yes, thank you. So a transaction coordinator is the person in the group that is helping to coordinate with a title and escrow process or with a closing attorney, depending on the state, all of the paperwork that you need to go from having a contract between a buyer and a seller all the way to closing escrow and assuming that property, or in some cases, I take lenders through the escrow process of putting a secured position on a property. But any paperwork that deals from agreeing that this is what is going to happen, all the way to signing on the dotted line, the money's exchanging hands, it's all going through escrow so that it's monitored and does it in a way that keeps everyone protected.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, to your point, when you hear maybe some of these details, you're like, well, that sounds kind of like boring and like, ew. But man, it's like there's just so much involved in being a transaction coordinator that you wouldn't even know, right? So it's like you don't know what you don't know until maybe you've done a deal and you don't have a TC and you're like, oh my gosh. And there's so many potential things that you can do wrong that have huge implications, like bad implications if they're not done correctly. And so, man, it makes such a good difference having a good TC on board. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I think a lot of people maybe like may potentially downplay having a TC, like, oh, I can just do it myself, or like, why do I even need that? Like we've done this 1,000 times. Like, no, you probably need a TC, and especially people that are newer to investing or purchasing real estate to have like a good TC on their team. Is such like a valuable asset. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about like what your process looks like for new clients or like what type of experience can they expect with you basically.
So you definitely can do a transaction without a TC. The question that you have to ask yourself is if you have the qualifications to, like, one, understand some of the parts of a process if it's new to you, and two, you want to know if you have the time. I think many people run into the time side of
Yep.
things, so they might have done their own transactions in the early on, and what you run into as a wholesaler or other parts of your business is you don't have enough time to maintain the files that you have open and continue getting new opportunities in your pipeline. And so having a person who's trusted on your team or who you hire to help move that process along frees up your time so that you're able to continue doing the parts of the business that makes money, because Transaction coordination is more of an operations side of things. And as we all know, operations isn't a side of the business that makes you money, but you cannot have it falling apart or you won't make the money you were projected to make in the first place. So
Right.
you always need to have either the responsibility put on yourself or on a team member or a hired person to make sure that that goes through.
Yeah. So like at a high level, so for people that aren't super familiar with like maybe a real estate transaction. So just like walk me through kind of like what this would look like. Like I said, like at a higher level. So I want to purchase a property, right? I'm a buyer and I'm going to work with Becca as my TC to purchase this property. Like what are the types of things that you're checking for in general? What are you making sure is correct? Like what absolutely cannot be missed? Just so that people can really understand like the value that a TC really adds to the transaction.
So a top tier transaction coordinator is that's the certification that I went through. We handle a little bit more complex transactions than your typical transaction coordinator. So in a typical real estate transaction where you're just buying something cash, um, all that a usual transaction would have to monitor is the agreements and the regular escrow process of making sure that either whatever conventional money you have is lined up, making sure that your inspections and other things have gone through and that there's no other hiccups that will delay a closing. On a creative transaction, we know that there are other ways of getting the financing done. And that's where all of these hiccups and different things can come into play. So I also, in addition to monitoring that your contract with the seller is accurate, that everything on the settlement statement matches what the contract has, we're also monitoring things like a mortgage account. If you're taking over someone's mortgage, we have to make sure that there are the correct disclosures sent to make sure that the sellers understand everything that they're committing to. In the contract, you've got to make sure there's limited power of attorney signed. You need to make sure that you have all of the different logins, insurance information, all of the servicing information if someone's going to be setting up a servicer. And there's different ways to set up all of these things to make sure that we're maintaining that original mortgage so that that is a part of the sale. And you're making sure that the transaction itself is done in a way that it protects the seller. So we're
Mm-hmm.
actually wrapping that mortgage in an additional security so that it gives the sellers something to actually stand on and hold everybody accountable. So there's
Yeah,
a
for sure.
lot of moving parts.
Yes.
I
Oh,
it, I
yes.
hope that
Yes.
was concise enough with while still sharing some of what we do on the day to
Yeah.
day with creative transactions.
Absolutely. And I know firsthand that the creative deals get very complicated and can become very overwhelming very quickly, right? With many moving pieces. So I'm super curious, is there anything in particular in a process with a creative deal that you think that TCs tend to catch more? Like if you had a creative deal without a TC and a creative deal with a TC, that you're like, yep, the TC is going to catch this and like we saved this person like liability or, we made this perfect for them. Whereas if you didn't have a TC, there's like some extra risk where it could slip through the cracks. Like, is there something that just comes to mind with that?
So it is not our responsibility solely to catch things that
This
maybe
is
you
true.
might miss. We do have some pretty extensive service contracts just so that people are aware that we're not legal support. We are assisting you with the process, but you still have to do your own due diligence. The
Hmm.
side of
Hmm.
things that I would say TCs often catch is when there's a fraudulent kind of a thing because we see so
Yes.
many of them. We are often like able to pick out the red flags a little bit faster. Sometimes those too good to be true scenarios often are too good to be true. And it helps to have someone who's seen what a real transaction looks like, particularly in the lending space, so that we can pick up when we see that someone who is trying to offer an EMD lend, for instance, doesn't have any real security on it, or there's a clause in the contract. We just 20 minutes ago pulled up a contract, and in going through the contract, one of the other TCs picked up that in line 20 or on page 20, it says that this EMD is non-refundable unless something is clouding title. And so that's probably not something that he wants to lend on unless he's getting a whole alternate option for his cross collateral.
Yeah. And I think that's so key that, the TCs are really, as a part of the team, one of the members that helps take a look at everything, but you are really the experts in catching things like that fraud. And the things that I've heard from TCs, I'm sure you have your own stories too, but like, saved $100,000 from getting wired to a fraudulent title company, like just crazy different things like that. We're not talking like, oh, this would have been like a $2,000 mistake or a $5,000 mistake. We're talking, usually in the magnitude of at least 10 plus $1,000, but bordering on significantly higher, which, wow, like what a difference that can make for people. And so it's so nice to have people who are experienced like that. I wanted to touch on something you had mentioned. We're kind of talking about the process, and not everyone that listens to this podcast is as familiar with Sub2, Gator, and creative finance in general. So what makes a TC different than being just a real estate agent?
So a real estate agent, obviously they deal in contracts all the time. Often real estate agents can make good transaction coordinators, if that's the area that they want to take their business. But transaction coordinators have chosen a niche in the paperwork, and particularly in the creative transaction coordinator space, where we are honing in on the operations. So as an agent, I might be representing a single buyer, I might be, or a seller, and just kind of advocating on their behalf. And as an agent, I would either do my own paperwork or hire a transaction coordinator to handle the situation. But as a transaction coordinator, much of what we handle is more of a liaison piece, where I'm going to all of the different parties and just making sure that if there's a task that needs to be done by a specific person, that I'm reaching out and getting it done in a timely manner, so that we don't get to Friday and Bill hasn't answered any of his texts all week. He still needs to sign and approve 2 different documents. He didn't send us his LLC documents. Like, he's just behind on all of these things, because while we would like to think that we're adults and we all handle our assignments, that is not quite how it works, particularly in entrepreneurship. We're busy. And that email that came through at 6 in the morning, it's buried by the time it gets to 3 p.m. And sometimes you just need a quick call to get those 3 things done with you on the phone, to make sure that what Bill actually wanted to happen on Friday happens on Friday.
Yeah, no, and that's such a good point. It's funny too, because I felt like, when I first started this journey, I was utilizing TCs and having a lot of babysitting involved in the TCs, and it wasn't you, or probably anybody that you know. But then the situation has reversed itself, and now I tell people that the TC babysits me because they're just so on top of it. I found, good fits, and it really helped me and my business make sure things are moving forward, because you guys are so on top of everything. That's just really helpful. So do you only TC deals in Utah?
No, actually, one of the great things about the community that I went through to do my transaction coordination is that we support each other nationwide, and it gives each of us a better chance at growing a business when I'm able to help people in Texas and Florida and any of those sunshine states where people are buying their properties or lending on properties. I'm able to help someone wherever they are. And because of computers, it's all very attainable, very seamless to work as a TC for someone, even if you're in a different state.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the really fun parts, right? Is we are so connected now through virtual, but you get to meet everybody at the cool national meetups that we go to, right? The Squad Up Summit and things like that. But I know, with you hosting the meetups in Utah, and for people who aren't watching this like via YouTube or something, and you're listening to it via podcast, both Liz and I are wearing our Sub 2 Utah shirts right now in just full representation of Becca's leadership and amazingness that she's done for the whole community locally here in Utah. So big shout out to you for that. But I want to hear a little bit more about your vision for your meetups going forward and what your goals are for the community that you've, so just graciously built everyone, and you continually bring value every single month, connecting people. And I just want to hear a little bit more about your vision going forward.
So I now support two different meetups myself, but I want to continue to build up the community to have more opportunities for people to get together, even if it's not my event, right? So currently, I do the first Tuesday of every month, we do the Squad Up meetup in Lehigh. And that's the one I started over 2 years ago. At around the beginning of the year, I also started to support the Sub 2 meetups, and we move those around a little bit to try and reach people who live further north, further south. Tiffany Curtis is in Southern Utah is starting to do her own ones in Southern Utah as well. So we're really starting to get that sense of community where every time we come to a meetup, we get a good mix of people who've been coming consistently for 2 years and new people that we can now help them along on their journeys. And you can see the the friendships blossom and the partnerships, and everything is starting to just gain momentum. And so I'm not doing it alone, certainly. And now I have a lot of help when I do a meetup. If I need help with setup or locations or anything, we have such a great group that all I have to do is send out a couple of texts and we can get a location, find a meeting spot, reserve a pavilion. There's so much help that's come from just doing things consistently. And my vision is that we kind of lead the community in this push to bring people together, but not keep anyone out of the club. You
Yeah,
know,
I think that's so great because I know you keep saying consistent, and to your point, you see so many like meetups where they may start initially and like go, 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 but then they just like drop off, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, when was the last time that group met up, right? But yours is just so consistent. Like I just know that every time I check, not every time, but when I check Facebook, I'll be like, hey, when's Becca gonna post again about the next meetup? And like you just know that it's gonna like be there, right? And it's gonna happen regardless of what else is going on. So I applaud you for that. And I want to hear more about like maybe what is your motivation? Like what keeps you like or made you want to start doing this and to keep doing it in the first place, arranging these meetups because it's a lot of work, right? Like it's not an easy task to continue to, find locations, figure out the topics, get speakers, coordinate everything, set it up, take it down. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, right? So where is this like intrinsic feeling that like, hey, yes, this is something that I want to do? Like, what is that? What does that look like for you?
well, some of it, like if I'm totally psychoanalyzing myself, some of it could be creative avoidance, right? It's like when you clean your house because like you need to pack, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a little bit of this that is creative avoidance for me in that I was so scared to get into real estate and I felt more capable to host a meetup than I did to do the thing. So I started doing meetups, bringing people together, creating a space while I was learning. I was gaining credibility,
Mhm.
but I I kind of came out of nowhere and just like, yeah, we're getting together, we're learning. Here's some experts, here's these different things. And as I went and helped people along, I gained some more of that credibility. And I said kind of in the beginning, TC was becoming a transaction coordinator was a total accident. I thought that I was going to just buy properties. And something just kept stopping me. And often it was with the paperwork, often it was with parts of the deal. I wanted to know how all the moving parts fit together before I did it, because I really care about having integrity and making sure that everyone's protected on a deal. And I still really, really care about that, whether you're lending or whether there's a buyer and a seller. I want to make sure that it's a win-win for everybody. And so starting the meetups was something that I knew was in my wheelhouse. I knew I could get people together. I knew we could foster a really great space. And the year that I started it, I actually had a pretty traumatic cardiac event
Mm.
and was put on the heart transplant list. And I kind of pulled back on a lot of my investing. And the only thing that I stuck to was, we're going to do a meetup once a month. I can help
Mm.
do this. And so it was the thing that I got to help hold on to and still help people without being full time, because I had to recover from a lot of PTSD and a lot of stuff with my health. And this was my creative avoidance / my way to continue bringing value. And it took me a whole other year to finally buy my first investment property. And it took me more time while I was doing that meetup to find my niche and figure out that I was helping people the whole time. But if you're a transaction coordinator, not only can you help people with a lot higher level of value to bring them, but you get paid. And
Right.
that's not a bad thing. And people are
Yes.
happy to pay you to help them do things the right way. So I feel like things just really started taking off, and I really found my flow when I defined how I was going to help people instead of just being available all the time for calls or consultations and things like that.
Right. Because you're working in a helper capacity in like both settings, right? You're doing the meetups, but then now you found your journey into a TC, which obviously, like you said, you're getting paid and probably learning just like so much information, just seeing these transactions and then connecting with more people. It's just like this continuous cycle, right? Where you continue to grow. And I know I've seen like the journey of the meetups evolving and to continue to get bigger and like more people are coming, et cetera, et cetera. And then we talked about how you identified how you wanted to be a TC. So I know that your journey has kind of like evolved, like many of ours do, right? Like I'm certainly not where I thought I was going to be when I first started, but I'm super interested in hearing like, is there anything that you've identified now that you wish you would have known when you very first started, like back in 2023, Becca, or even before that when you first started listening to like Bear Pockets?
So real estate really is something that you have to jump in to understand. Um, as much as transaction coordination has taught me more of the back end side and the paperwork, I was terrified even to start there, right? Because you're like, someone's going to pay me money to do this thing. And so I had to approach it in a way that I had a team to support me, and I had a community to make sure that I was doing things correctly, but that I was holding up my end of the bargain as well. But I wish that I the whole time had just like someone just barely pushing me that next step. And that for me has made a big difference. I've had a few people in the community that consistently give me advice and the stuff that's to get uncomfortable, and having friendships and connections that are consistently telling you to do that next step made a big difference for me versus having friends who are like, not so sure about my entrepreneurship, or, oh, well, maybe you could just get another W-2. They're more concerned about if they trust that you'll follow through than if like you can do it. And so you do have
Yeah.
to be in the right friend groups and the right connections so that you can actually get past those hurdles and do it consistently enough that you can grow.
Right. And it just goes back to like why those meetups are so important too, right? Because a lot of us maybe don't necessarily have that friend group naturally where we're all trying to be involved in real estate or invest, and maybe you don't see eye to eye on that with your other friends. And so it's good to get in that circle and that environment of other people that think the same way you do and have the same interest so that you can work together and push each other, just like you were alluding to, because it is very important, right? And I say this about a lot of things, how obvious things sound you're like, duh, but people will still just not do it, right? And it's so obvious, but so true that you really do know those people in your corner to help elevate you. Like if you're not the person that's like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and then you do it, like you really need someone to be like, hey, go do it, right? I know Andrea is that person for me. Otherwise, I would just not be doing this. So it's very much needed, right? So I definitely feel for you and feel with that statement very much so. I'm curious, like, what is something that you've learned from your meetups? I know it's a really vague question, but you've just done so many. Are there any big take-home lessons? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I've seen this evolve, or I this was a huge learning lesson for me. Just anything along those lines.
So when I first jumped into investing, I think I'm not sure whether this was certain mentors that I had or just like the opinion of like, watch out, you don't want someone to take advantage of you. My biggest fear in first going to meetups was like, I'm going to meet someone and because I didn't vet them well enough, like they're going to take advantage of me or they're not going to have the qualifications. And so I would go into relationships kind of timid because I would be waiting for like a better connection to pop out of nowhere. And what I found in showing up at the meetups and being pretty consistent, like go to 3 months in a row, the people who are showing up consistently are the ones who you want to work with. Like, and they surprise me all the time because you can't put someone in a box of what you think they can accomplish based off of how they look or what their past job was. Like, you really do have to get to know people on a different level, other than just like, well, here's what their resume would say. And I am consistently shocked with like so and so just did these three things like in their business. They have done three new things or they started a new business. And it's people who I just maybe wouldn't have pictured. And I'm always shocked. And so I think I have become less jaded in doing the meetups, which is a nice kind of a refreshing take because some people, the more you're in the business, the more jaded you get. I see it kind of on both sides. With paperwork, I do see a lot of things that could make you jaded, but I also just see opportunity everywhere. And I think it's a huge thing to have the right mindset and the right group that continues that momentum forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, and that's such a good takeaway too, because, I think we're all guilty of judging a book by its cover, and we really shouldn't, right? And so it's a good reminder that that isn't always the case, and you can find your partners from unexpected places, and especially when you watch them consistently demonstrate that they're going to show up, right? That's half the battle. I mean, half of the battle is just showing up. I can't tell you the number of people that I have had a phone call with or Zoom or met at a meetup who they're like, I'm all in on real estate. I'm going to quit my job or I'm going to do whatever. And they're like, yes, 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 all in. And then like next month, they're completely on to some other thing and are not even thinking about real estate anymore. And I was like, oh, where did that, where'd that person go? Right. So just showing up, I don't know, honest, you have to take action after that. But man, showing up is seriously such a large part of the battle right there. So I want to hear a little bit. You mentioned you worked some corporate jobs before, and now you're a TC and you're really working for yourself. And those two worlds are completely different. And so I want to hear a little bit if you have any habits or routines that you've developed to really stay on track of your goals because of that shift.
Calendars have been a big, big lifesaver because I love talking to people and I can go on and on. I have to use a calendar because it's not fair to me or them if I'm giving them all this time and I'm not going to have that time later on unless I have like a structured time of like when I can take calls. So I do kind of an intro to the community and most often that's people here in Utah, but I talk to a lot of people all over because I'm of transaction coordination, but I call it my creative concierge service. And it's a little 15-minute timer and with a 15-minute buffer because I'm still really, really working to get anything down to 15 minutes ever. But calendars, I did a little bit of time blocking in my corporate life, but not near the extent that you need. If you are building a business, you need to define times that you're not going to do anything else except your email, or you're not going to do anything else except talking with title companies and getting updates. Like it's it's been a whole thing. Ashley Mason has a whole time audit um, like practice that she took us through when we were doing the intern manager course, and it was eye opening to break my day into 15-minute increments and just see how much time gets lost into doom scrolling or sleep, like things that you're like, oh, I do sleep more than I think I do.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think at Squat Up, the last real estate conference with Pace, I'm pretty sure he had us do an activity where he was like, I dare you to track all your time during a day. And my first thought, which is so sad, was like, I'm definitely not doing that because I knew I was going to be like, oh, look, you screwed around for like 8 hours. How did you even do that? Right. So it is a valuable time, though, or a valuable tool to know like where your time is going to audit it. So I think it's always good to reevaluate it and see like what's working for you, what's not working for you. But best of luck getting your timing timing down. I know it's hard for some people, but then on the flip side, it's can you imagine that some people even struggle having a conversation to fill for 15 minutes? So, just think of it that way too, right? Like, yeah. So it's so interesting. So interesting. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about mindset, since you do have so much experience in like maybe starting these new endeavors with both your TC and the meetups. So I wanted to ask you for someone that is new in like their financial freedom journey. So maybe they're interested in learning more. What do you suggest to get in the right mindset, or what do you think is the right mindset to have for that?
So, anytime you're new to something, you want to lead with value, but you also have to have your whole vibration, like, needs to have this abundance mindset walking into a room because your posture, the way you smile, the way you communicate, like, that is either a magnetic vibration or it's going to kind of like push people away. And so I've talked about this before with some people in the community, but I have this, I don't know if it's radical or insane or just like a little crazy, but I believe when I walk into a room, it's that everyone loves me and everyone wants to help me accomplish my goals. And most of the time, I think it's super spot on. So, um, going into an event when I feel like anxious, like I'm not enough or I'm not accomplished enough, I have to do these like mind tricks to like be like, I deserve to be here. I have something else that's valuable, even if I don't have X, Y, or Z. And so honestly, music for me, listening to music before I hop on a call or do something like, and maybe do like in your mind like a reset of the things that are valuable outside of just being a loan sponsor or like owning 20 doors or something, like whatever you think you needed to have, you've got to flip it and reframe an alternate truth of what you is true and also is valuable to other people, so that you then can reaffirm everybody loves me, everybody wants to help me accomplish my goals. And however that you accomplish that, like I have some crazy ones where if I'm really feeling insecure, I flip it around and it's like, well, I'm an above average dancer. If we turn this around and it's like a dance battle, I could crush you all. And that's my that's my little tick to like go into a meeting full of people who are way um, more experienced than me and still walk in with a smile. And
Yeah.
that alone, I think, has gotten me into conversations that wouldn't have been open otherwise.
Yeah, I will say that is, I say one of the more prominent things about you is I feel like you're super positive and you're always smiling. I don't think I've literally ever seen you not like look like you're having the best day of your life. So, I mean, that's great. That's a great like characteristic to have, obviously. And I can definitely relate to like the struggles of, things being intimidating and not wanting to like show up or having that mindset where it's just like working against you. So I think it is something that a lot of people obviously struggle with and can be like so valuable. Once again, another thing that sounds so obvious, but so many people just don't do it. So I love that you like really spend a lot of time in your head. And what about those people, as you alluded to before, it took you a while to do your first deal because maybe you're scared or you're saying maybe you didn't understand the paperwork. But for those individuals that are like, man, I really want to like lend on my first deal, or man, I really want to do my first like buy my first property or whatever, but they keep like finding a reason not to. What would you say for their mindset? What advice would you give them?
I think it is so underrated to orbit somebody else's business and bring them what they need. Um, Particularly if you haven't been able to identify someone who could be a potential mentor, that can be hard to find. But there are so many people, certainly now, who if you don't know someone, I will find you someone. But there are so many people that have a defined business plan. They're looking specifically for 3 bedroom, 2 bath, this close to the highway. This is what they're buying, or a first or second position gap lend in these states. Go and get it. And so my advice would be to stop thinking about your own self and get out of your head just a little bit. And instead of just looking for something that you can buy right now, find something that somebody else can buy and shadow the whole process and do that about 5 times. And once you've done it that many times, you're going to be like ready to do it for yourself, because there's so much that just doing work as a transaction coordinator. Now, if it came to sales, I think I haven't really sat down and like seen how much better it is, but I'm pretty sure that I could close some deals if I knew exactly what I was looking for, what I wanted. But I would never have known how to do that had I not helped people on their own files.
I love that. And I think there's so many ways to bring other people value. And I love that you walk into the room and you think about that, because it really is true. Like, people don't go to meetups not to meet people and not to see how they can help and be helped, right? And so, like, it almost seems counterintuitive, but that's really the whole purpose. And that's one of the first things I told myself when I was making calls to agents who I was doing direct to agent, on market wholesaling, and making outbound calls to agents. And one of the first things I realized was, this is not a cold call they want me to call. They want to sell the house. I mean, most agents, sometimes there's a little, but
Quickly.
yeah, but they want to talk to you. They want that, right? And so I love that you flip that script in your head and you think about that. And I love that you're also focused on bringing other people that value, because that's such a good way to get into real estate at the beginning without like losing your shirt, right? You're orbiting someone else, they're taking the risk, they're operating in their business, and then you're watching what they do. So, I mean, I think that, that's just, that's such good advice. I love like following along the people that are doing exactly what you're doing and then figuring out that process and then doing it yourself, rather than just being like, I jumped in and I have no idea what I'm doing. And now the contract doesn't make any sense. But my, due diligence ends tomorrow and I still think it's a deal. Like, can you help me? Right. Like, that's just, we're all getting like the, yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, thinking about wrapping up the podcast a little bit, we talked a lot about transactions and real estate and meetups. And Liz and I have a goal of traveling and exploring the outdoors a little more. Your journey may be a little bit different, because I know you shared some personal stuff about being on the heart transplant list, but wondering if you have any ultimate bucket list adventure, something you're looking forward to, even if it's local.
So locally, um, really, this is silly. So I'm on their transplant list. They have a whole bunch of these like restrictions that they want to give you. If you get a heart transplant, you're immune compromised for the rest of your life. And so they tell you no hot tubs and no pools and no like hot springs, because certain temperatures can be breeding grounds for bacteria. And so, like, one of my bucket list items has been that we need to like look up all the super local hot springs. And I know there's a ton in Utah, but that's one of those things that I'd love to do. And if I could, I'm still kind of on the journey where I'm like, maybe I can manifest healing my heart. We're still not quite there where I'm like, we'll figure out something, stem cells or peptides or no sugar. But for now, that's my current bucket list is just hitting up all the hot springs. And they all have these like cool hikes and different things kind of around them.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. We just went to Fifth Water. Have you been there yet?
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, there you go. There you go. That should be your number one.
That's my next one.
Um, yeah, yeah. But I like that idea. That's very good. So, of course, we all wish you very well and are sending positive thoughts for that entire process. And um, I just think it just goes to show how determined you are in your life in general, just because you continue to do these meetups and, your journey through becoming a TC. Like all these other individuals have other excuses and may not have the other factors that you have in your life. So I just wanted to applaud you for, your journey and how successful you've been in that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, of course, of course. And I know we talked a lot about your meetups and your involvement, and then of course your TC and your journey, and you're taking new clients, I presume, as well for transaction coordination and outside
Yeah.
of Utah, like we talked about, right?
Yeah. So if anyone is looking for a TC, feel free to schedule some time on my Calendly. I'm happy to do that creative concierge service where if nothing else, I can point you to your next three steps. If TC is what you need, great. If either my team will have space to do it or I can refer you to some people who are specializing in that type of transaction. Um, but I am looking specifically for more lenders who are looking for TC to just do repeat business. I really love working in the lending space. My husband's background was in lending. We understand it really well. I love that we can make the whole transaction a little more secure and make everything clear. But particularly if you're like looking for a transaction coordinator to do just all your lending files, I'd love to have a call.
And the best way is to schedule something on your Calendly. Is that the best way they would get a hold of you for the
Yes.
transaction coordinator? Okay, perfect. And then what if an individual would like to learn more about the local meetups in Utah? How do they get more information on that?
So I believe I attached my either my link or my Instagram. You can reach out to me on any of the socials, and I'll get you in touch with either our Eventbrites. I'm actually working on building out, particularly for Utah, a calendar that has all of the free meetups. So not just my meetups, not just the sub twos, but everything going on this week. I want it in one place so that you can click on it and see what works with your schedule, what works with your location, and just hit up the three that work for you and not have to scour seven different websites to figure out what's going on or who's speaking or where to go. It's
Yes,
exhausting.
that would be amazing, but that's a big feat you have tried to you're taking on here. So thank you, but good luck. Yeah. And lastly, what if someone wants to get in contact with Becca? Not TC Becca, but Becca.
Uh, Still, probably the best thing is the Becca Brown on Instagram. Feel free to message me on there. The other links I will just send you through my Instagram chat. I'm pretty active on there, but the Becca Brown is the easiest way to find me. Send me a message and we'll connect from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Becca. It has been so lovely to have you on here today. You, just like Liz mentioned, you are a ray of sunshine, and it's so fun to get to hang out with you and get to know you a little bit better, even though it's been multiple years since we've known you. But, getting this time to chat a little bit more always is so, so, so nice. And so we're excited about your journey. I mean, I know it took a little while, but I think that is just speaks to how intentional you are, and I love that, and I love that you were able to share that with us today. So once again, thanks so much for being on here, and then thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode of From Corporate to Cash Flow. We will catch you next week. Hey, it's Andrea. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, I'd love it if you hit subscribe. Thanks so much.